Jason Calacanis has just confronted U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright on renewable energy in what turned out to be quite a spicy altercation. Check out this clip.
Let me ask you a little bit about China. 2024, they've installed 2 to 3 times the amount of solar that America did per capita. They also have 33 nuclear power plants under construction, 200 planned. Your administration, David included, you keep talking about clean, beautiful coal. You keep dissing solar and batteries and wind and deriding it like you just did. What does China, and you keep talking about nat gas and clean, beautiful coal. What does China understand that you don't?
Okay, so great.
And tell me how beautiful and clean the coal is and how terrible and ugly these windmills are. Please explain to us what we're missing.
Well, of course, coal has been the biggest source of global electricity for 125 years. That's as long as we have good data, and it will be for decades more. So I know you don't like it, but it's not going away. It's by far and away the biggest source of electricity in China, and they built 100 coal plants last year. They built capacity more than almost every country in the world has, new capacity. So they do build a lot of wind and solar. It's still a very small percent of their energy, just like it is here, but they have an awesome industry of exporting those products around the world. They're over 80% of the solar. No, they don't export much coal at all, actually.
Okay.
They export solar.
Right.
They're 80% of the solar supply chain. And think about this.
Is that why you guys are down on it, that we would have to buy the solar panels from them? Because it seems like you're looking backwards and China's looking forward. That's where the disconnect is coming for me.
But there's no there there.
There's no there in solar and batteries, so Elon Musk has it completely wrong.
He has a wildly exaggerated view of where solar and batteries will go. And I'd love, if we could make a bet 50 years out, I'll make a bet solar never gets to 10% of global energy. Solar has a future. And so after 30 years of subsidies, maybe it should fly on its own as an energy source. It has roles. There's remote power. In the United Arab Emirates, they're building a firmed 1 gigawatt solar, 8 gigawatts of panels, and a ton of batteries. They've got great sun resources. They have low-cost labor. They can build things there. Solar has a role, but we've had this inflated role that somehow the world is going to run on solar panels. There's no math that shows that'll ever happen, and China doesn't believe it for a moment. But think
why are they installing 3 times as many as us per capita then? And why are they so effective at installing nuclear power plants? Like, this is what I don't know if you're gaslighting us, no pun intended. Like, and this is just like a Trump MAGA thing where we have to diss natural sources. But do you really want to dig coal out and burn it and pollute the environment that we're giving to our kids?
I want energy to better human lives. And the cost and reliability of electricity and energy sources. The other thing we should say, electricity delivers 20% of global energy. Wrap the whole planet in a solar panel, you got 20% of energy delivered. Where's the other 80% going to come from? It's process heat. It's transportation fuels to run jets, to run ships. That's not going to come from solar.
I'm not sure Chris has fully done his maths there, because if supposedly you wrap the entire globe in solar, you get 20% of our needs. Yet he's willing to make a bet by 2050, we won't be anywhere near 10%. Well, we won't be anywhere near 2 or 3% if you had to wrap that much of the planet in solar to get those margins. But
he makes some really good points in this thing, so it's going to be interesting to try and dissect all of this. But he's also being extremely retarded at the very same time. And he doesn't understand what it is that he's talking about. He's obviously never, read his Tony Seba. And when he talks about there's no math that conceivably we could get to these future things, I mean, I don't know what data he's looking at, but one of the things that Tony Seba has shown repeatedly is the experts always say, solar's only going to be able to provide this much energy in the future. And it's a linear line that just extrapolates forward exactly how much they have today and, modest increases moving forward. And they do that year over year over year over year. And when you plot it, this is clearly an exponential curve that's just going like straight vertical. And every time, it keeps going up, there's like, no, now it's going to stop here and it's just going to go like this. Oh, now it's just going to stop here and it's going to go like this. So I'm assuming that's the type of thing that he's looking at. Now, when he talks about, so I'm really glad that he clarified on the 20% of energy. Yes, right now, electricity, what I think that I understand that he's saying is that electricity globally is only 20% of the energy that is consumed globally. that, when you factor in all of the other ways that we burn stuff, mostly oil and gas, natural gas, those types of things to produce energy, that it's being used. If you have I have a natural gas heater in my house. And so my AC and my water heaters all run on gas. And so, that's not electricity. And so those types of things don't get captured in the 80% of the energy that gets consumed that was never converted into or out of electricity. The thing that misses is the fact that, all that natural gas, all that coal, that was all produced by solar energy. It just took thousands and thousands, if not millions of years to produce these natural gas resources or these coal resources or whatever, things that we're taking, whether it's trees or whatever it is that we're burning to release energy. All of that stuff got its energy originally from the sun and went through a very long and very inefficient process to become the thing it is that we're using to get the energy back out. And so this is where, if you wrapped the entire globe in solar panels, you would be able to produce way more electricity than the total energy consumption, including all of the stuff that he's talking about that never gets converted into or out of electricity. In fact, you'd have so much extra electricity if you did that you could come up with extremely inefficient processes to then make oil and gas and synthetic biofuels and all these other things. I mean, this is what Chris Hanmer at Terraform Industries is laser focused on, is how do we actually produce these other forms of energy that we use, because we want to actually be able to power the infrastructure that already exists that runs on natural gas, but we'd like to power it from solar. Why don't we just take in sunlight and run a chemical process and produce methane so that we can run all this stuff? And the cost curves, this is where it gets inevitable, is that solar energy is just getting so much cheaper so fast that as long as we have batteries to be able to store the solar energy between the time when the sun is shining wherever it is that we are and when we want to use it, and those cost curves are also declining rapidly, like those two things together, eventually solar is going to be way cheaper than anything else that we could do, nuclear included. And that combined with super cheap and ubiquitous batteries is going to allow us to just dramatically transform the global economy. And we're not going to have just like 2 times as much energy as we're using today. We could have 10 times, 50 times, 100 times more energy than we have today, which allows us to live in that sci-fi future that we all want to. And no, you're like, natural gas is never going to get us there. Fusion potentially could be something if we figured out how to make it a lot more, because right now it takes a lot of energy in order for fusion to actually work. And so you don't get as much back out of the fusion reactions as you would want. So, I don't know if the efficiency of that process can ever get us to the type of future that we're thinking about, but maybe it can. Certainly we should keep doing research and exploring whether or not that's possible. But it's basically a guaranteed eventual outcome for solar and batteries. And so we should continue to press forward on investing in solar and batteries because it's the highest chance that we have of having all of that abundant future that we want.
So Elon has predicted solar and batteries are going to dominate in the future. China is investing at a rate of 2 to 3 times per capita than the US. Why does Elon say such?
And they have a heck of a lot more people than we do. So, when you think about what that translates into in total dollars, like it's insane.
Exactly. So why does Elon see such a big future for solar? Why is China investing so heavily? Why is the US remaining so skeptical? What is the US's problem there, or this current government's problem there?
They're retards. I mean, I don't know how else to say this. And the good news is that Elon understands this. Tim Urban has a great thing about the cook in his secret sauce, or the chef in his secret sauce. It talks about Elon's way of doing business. And one of the fundamental things that Elon understands is you have to create economic forcing functions that make the outcome that you want to achieve inevitable, because markets will achieve them on their own regardless of your participation. And so this is one of the things that he's done with Tesla, is that by showing that EVs can be better vehicles than ICE vehicles, now the market is going to solve the EV transportation problem regardless of how much how many cars Elon makes specifically. And okay, so our market here in the United States is heavily regulated, it's retarded, but China sees it. And so BYD and all these other Chinese EV makers are going to solve the EV problem for the rest of the world. Then Elon sees that. He's like, okay, I don't want to compete just on EVs now. Let's raise the bar and go to the next thing. Let's do EVs that can drive themselves. And then once he shows that that's possible, then boom, you'll have a whole nother wave of market competition that's going to solve autonomous electric vehicle transportation, which is going to absolutely destroy ICE transportation. That is the process that's already in play right now for solar. And so regardless of what US policy ends up being here, the thing that we can't escape from is what I said earlier. Solar is getting cheaper every year. Batteries are getting cheaper every year. We're building up capacity because people want, there's already a market to buy everything that gets made. And every time we buy them, they get cheaper. And the more they get cheaper, the more of them we want to buy. And that is a self-reinforcing flywheel that is going to produce this outcome where we might be retarded people in Washington might be able to slow down a process here in the United States by a few years one way or the other, or maybe they could accelerate it a few years one way or the other, but they're not going to be able to stand in the way of this economic steamroller that is going to produce this solar and battery powered abundant future.
So we have Elon Musk predicting solar and batteries are going to dominate. We have Tony Seba predicting that batteries and solar is going to dominate.
And someone hasn't ever told Chris Wright, you don't bet against Elon. He literally just proposed, I want to make a bet against Elon on the future of solar and batteries 50 years from now.
Yep. And it sounds like we have Hans C. Nelson predicting that solar and batteries are going to dominate. So to play devil's advocate here, is there any chance Elon is too optimistic about batteries and solar? Is there anything which, potentially could be out there, which means this is a risk to this thesis? And is that potentially what Chris Wright is getting at here to play devil's advocate?
So if AI wasn't a thing, I think that would be more possible. But the demand for electricity that's coming from the development of AI and then the AI inference workloads that are going to come on the back of that is going to be so massive. There's only one of these energy sources that has an unbounded upper limit on its ability to scale, and that's solar and batteries. Ultimately, all of the energy that exists on Earth for us to tap into comes from the sun. And this is why Elon talks about Kardashev scales. The way that we as human species on planet Earth have access to use the most energy is by capturing every single photon of energy that hits the Earth from the sun. There's only one way to do that, and it is with solar energy. And so that's why this uncapped, unbounded upside of the amount of energy that we can use comes from solar. And it just happens to already be cheap enough economically that we can afford to invest in building out the next gigawatt of capacity. Means that this is the thing that is going to, we can't build enough natural gas turbines to supply the demand from energy infrastructure in AI. So unless there's some magic thing in AI where we just stop having to use anywhere near the amount of energy that we are, and Jevons paradox isn't true, that when you do that, you don't just want more tokens and you continue to use the same amount of energy and you just produce, 1,000 times as much AI. Those two things would have to be true in order for AI not to be a forcing function that just pushes us way down the road of solar and batteries. And I just don't see those two things happening. I think that we're going to continue to use as much energy as we can produce in order to become smarter and accomplish more things.